Hello, everyone. It is Mahlena Ray Johnson for Nerdy Girls with Mahlena Ray Johnson. That's me. And today's topic is I hate networking, the ABCs of how to make friends in business. C is for change the conversation. So we're going to discuss some topics, which it's better for me to talk about, to decide what they are so that I know where I'm going. But sometimes I think of things and then they don't fit into the description because I have to put them in the comments. So first, who am I? I am still Mahlena Ray Johnson. I went to Loyola Marymount for film school. I went to University of Southern California for business school, where I got my MBA in marketing, entertainment, and entrepreneurship. And I'm writing my fourth book, Love It a Luau, which is a romance novel about a refugee suffering from PTSD who is scared to fall in love with a single dad. And over the past 10 years, I have done hundreds of informational interviews and coffee chats. So I'm immensely qualified to help you learn how to make friends in business, especially all over the world, since I have met people from all over the world. And I also talk with people from countries all over the world on a regular basis. All right, so let's get started with C is for change the conversation. So this is something I say usually to myself, but sometimes I think it. It's a phrase from Mad Men, which is if you don't like the question, change the conversation. This is something that will definitely happen when you go to networking events, that there will likely be someone there who asks the weird question, or if you don't know how to answer it, you're just like, instead of figuring out an answer to a question that you don't know how to answer or that you don't think you need to answer, change the conversation, meaning shift it to something else. Sometimes this involves changing the subject, but not always. Sometimes it can be rephrasing the person's question to you as a question to them. So for instance, a lot of people are going to ask each other, what do you do? And they're going to say, you're probably going to answer with whatever you do. You could answer with, let's say, I work at, let's see, what's a place that people could say they work at? Let's say I'm an assistant manager at Target. Okay, so you're assistant manager at Target. Instead of just asking the other person, what do you do? You can change the conversation by asking them about how they chose their position, especially if you know what it is already. So let's say the other person responds by saying, oh, that's interesting. And then you say, okay, well, what do you do? And they say, I work as an investment banker. What you can then say, instead of asking them specifically more about that topic, how did you decide to go into investment banking? Or are you doing what you love? Usually try to phrase it as not a yes or no question. Sometimes I did think of this ahead of time. So let's say you're a Target and you love working at Target, and the other person is investment banker, and you can say, how did you get into investment banking? What do you love about investment banking? What do you do when you're not investment banking? Or how does an investment banker like you plan to get the most out of this event? So you're talking about not just investment banking and identifying that person as solely their position, but learning more about how they want to apply what they know as an investment banker, or how they got into the field, or what they as a person are going to be getting out of things, so that you learn more about that person. All right, so how do we get to Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, inaccurate racial designations, leading instead of following, and too much TV? So let's start from the bottom. Too much TV. I watch too much TV, but I say again, how much is too much? And then, see, instead of focusing the problem on me and having too much time in front of the television or in front of my computer watching Netflix, the question can then be asked the other person, how much is too much? And then they'll be like, because that is a very subjective question. For some people, too much is just any TV on ever. for me, one of the things that I'm doing with my television watching is increasing my Spanish fluency. So I have been watching Club de Cuervos, the 3rd season, and what's the other thing I watched? Grace and Frankie in Espanol, and other shows and documentaries on Netflix. And that's not just me wasting time. I usually do it while I exercise, so I'm doing 2 things at once. Also, it's helping me learn a language even better than I would have if I just studied it from a book like I had done when I started, or hoping that I find someone to speak with in Spanish, which I could go find, but not everybody has time to talk to me all day. So I can do that on my own. Now let's get back up to Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people. So this is something that came up today as I was watching some TV, as you will. It was really on YouTube. I was watching a panel of the Asian American panel at Comic-Con from 2017. So now it's today is March 9th, 2018. And a topic came up, which was a similar topic to one I've heard before at other places, and one of the same topic came up at a Hispanic digital media conference that I attended a few years ago. They were separate. I'm sure I don't know if there was any crossover between the 2 groups because I couldn't see all the people, but at both events, both the Hispanic Digital Media Conference and the Asian American panel at Comic-Con, years apart, the topic came up of, look at how Black people support each other at the movies. At the Hispanic Digital Media Conference, the example was given Tyler Perry's movies and how Black people come out to support those. And at the Asian American conference, or Asian American panel at Comic-Con, the topic was brought up of Girls Trip and Get Out, and how Black people came out to support those movies. So we as Hispanic people and we as Asian people really need to support each other and go to the movies and support what we do. And both of those times I was like, wait a minute. Yes, those things are somewhat true. In the instance of Girls Trip and Get Out, it's not as controversial as Tyler Perry, but there is so much infighting amongst just the Black American community, much less the African diaspora as a whole, over what are we going to support? How dare we do this? What are we doing? Why are you complaining? Who's doing what? Who's saying what? There's so much debate. You could just do a whole series on the debate that Black people have over Tyler Perry. And that would just take up one book, and then you'd have to get back to talking about Girls Trip and Get Out and Tiffany Haddish, and I like Tiffany Haddish, by the way. I knew about her before Girls Trip, and have tweeted about her as well, particularly her time in the foster care system and how she inspired me to continue to want to adopt children domestically. So my point with these 2 instances coming up again, saying that Black people support each other and we need to do that too. And I actually heard it at another conference, another Asian American conference. This one was about business, and I think it was Roy Choi, the founder of Kogi Barbecue, saying that we really need to support each other like Black people support each other. And I'm like, what are you even saying? And I was one of the only Black people in the room, so I was like, is that like you think we're all just walking hand in hand, marching? Like, no. And I was reminded of this, how that doesn't play out. What I would have liked if I was actually on these panels, I would have changed the conversation to say that that's another form of racism, in that look at what Black people are doing, even if it's positive. It's one of the few ways that we have this model minority attribute that we usually don't have, but to other people, other colorful people in the United States, it's seen as we're doing something. Look at those Black people doing something great. They're all in a community and they're doing something moving forward. We got to do that too. And I'm like, wait, whoa. There are so many different reasons why that you need to think about before you say that. But the way I would change the conversation is to say, how are you connecting with people that you know that are Black and that are organizing in a way that makes sense to do that same organizing in your community? Because it's kind of, it's somewhat glib to tell a group of people, whether they are Hispanic or Asian or whatever they may be, to be like, you should support more. Like, how can you get a ball rolling, put up a sign or something, tell them what to do, not just say support more. We need to support each other. So Black people are still saying that to each other. And oh yes, so also inaccurate historical designations. So these are how the panels were labeled. The people there were not just Hispanic, they were probably Hispanic and Latino, and I'm neither, and I was there too. It was deemed as Asian, even though people there were Asian American, Pacific Islanders, people of the Asian diaspora, and Black people. And Black people is not just Black Americans. There's a tendency to conflate Black with African American when sometimes you mean neither, but they're not the same thing. Not all Black people are American. There are lots of Black people everywhere. And leading instead of following. So instead of just following what you think Black people are doing, lead. Start with you and organizing that community and saying, hey, we need to go support Crazy Rich Asians, which is coming out at some point. We need to go support Coco, which people did. Yay! But there is a time that you, specifically the person watching this, needs to lead instead of just looking at what other people are doing and trying to mimic them, especially at events and especially online as well. Decide who you are and lead the conversation. So if someone is kind of drifting off, or they're asking you all these questions that aren't getting you where you want to go, lead the conversation. Start asking your questions in a way that gets the information that you want from the other person. You are the one that is in control of your life, so you can also be in control of the conversation. It takes work. This is not a skill that's going to come immediately, but it is something that you can work on. So again, if you don't like the question, change the conversation. And this is, ironically, it's coming from Mahlena and Don Draper, but if you are a person from a marginalized community, also, I don't like to call people minorities because that is an inaccurate statement. Not just in America, but in the world. As I was telling one of my buddies, calling people of Asian descent minorities is incredibly inaccurate. As one, they are the fastest growing group in the United States. Two, they make up over 60% of the world's population, not including the people of the Asian diaspora. So I like to change the conversation that way. Instead of saying we should have more minorities on screen, I say no, we should have more colorful people on screen, because I like the word colorful. It makes me feel happy. All right, so how are you going to change the conversation today? Well, first, you need to have a conversation or plan to have one. So I want you to go out and figure out how to have a conversation, whether in person or online. And if you don't need to change it, great, just keep going with it. But if you want to change the conversation, start practicing those skills. See ways how you can shift what you are talking about to get what you need out of this interaction with another human being. All right, so if you have comments and you're on Facebook, please leave them in the comment section. And if you want to email me, please do so at fornerdygirls@gmail.com. And if you want more advice on how to change the conversation or how to find conversations to have in the first place, please email me and we will talk, and I will help you break through that barrier. Again, email me at fornerdygirls@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.